Good morning, Pilgrim. Today I'm going to read from John 24:29, a section of scripture that everybody has heard before, I believe. Jesus and Thomas, doubting Thomas. Now Thomas, one of the 12 called the twin, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see in his hands the mark of the nails, and place my finger into the mark of the nails, place my hand into his side, I will never believe." 8 days later, his disciples were in sight again, and Thomas was with them. Although the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here, see my hands. Put out your hand and place it in my side. Do not disbelieve, but believe." Thomas answered him, "My Lord and my God." Jesus said to him, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." Yes, see Jesus and believe. Thomas, well, I've heard some preachers and some commentators say about this bit of scripture here. It says, "Put your finger here and see my hands, and put your hand and place it in my side." I don't believe that Thomas did that. Jesus said to him, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." I don't believe it was necessary for Thomas to touch Jesus at all, put his fingers in his hands in his side. I don't think he had to do that at all. He believed because he saw Jesus. And we should not have to see him. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. Believed through faith. Faith given to us by God. God's grace. God's grace. 14 January 1855, The Sin of Unbelief by Charles Spurgeon. 2 Kings 7:19. And that Lord answered the man and said, "Now behold, if the Lord should make windows in heaven, might such a thing be? And he said, Behold, thou shalt see it with thine eyes, but shalt not eat thereof." Shall see it, but not believe. "Thou shalt see it with thine eyes, but shalt not eat thereof." It's so often with God's own saints, when they are unbelieving, they see the mercy with their eyes, but do not eat it. Now here is corn in this land of Egypt, but there are some of God's saints who come here on the Sabbath and say, "I do not know whether the Lord will be with me or not." Some of them say, "Well, the gospel is preached, but I don't know whether it will be successful." They just find it hard to believe. They're always doubting. They're always fearing. Listen to them when they get out of the chapel. "Well, did you get a good meal this morning? Did you hear a good sermon?" "No, nothing for me." Of course not. You could see it with your eyes, but you didn't eat it because you had no faith. If you had come up with faith, you would have had a morsel. I have found Christians who have grown so very critical that if the whole portion of the meat they are to have in due season is not cut up exactly into the square pieces, exactly as they like it, and put upon some choice dish of porcelain, presented fancy speech and everything, they can't eat it. They can't stand the sermon if it ain't done right. Then they ought to go without until they're brought to their appetites. They will have some affliction which will act like quinine upon them. They will be made to eat by means of bitters in their mouths. They will be put in prison for a day or two until their appetite returns, and then they will be glad to eat the most ordinary food of the most common platter, off the most common platter, or no platter at all. Yeah, but the real reason why God's people don't feed under a gospel ministry is because they have not the faith. If you believed, if you heard only one promise, that would be enough. You unbeliever, think on these things. Listen to Romans 10:14. How then will they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in him of whom they have never heard? How are they to hear without someone preaching? How are they to preach unless they are sent, as it is written? How beautiful are the feet of those who preach the good news. But they have not all obeyed the gospel. For Isaiah says, Lord, who has believed what he has heard from us? So faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. And faith comes from God. Again, I recommend Ephesians 2. But I ask, have they not heard? Indeed they have. For their voice has gone out to all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. Hearing but not understanding, because not listening with the ear of faith. God bless, brothers and sisters. Have a great day.